among the relations with allies, with neighbors, with countries like China and Russia, big powers, and also on hotspot issues, which one do you think, Ambassador Volker, President Trump did well and not during the first 100 days?
I think that he has shown that he is very adaptable, that he is indeed putting America's interest first, but he's very flexible and adaptable on how to go about doing that. He's also obviously had a learning curve on a lot of these issues. It's not been his background before. And I think on each of these issues, and your report just went through a lot of them, he's landed with very good advisors and very good policies, roughly where the United States needs to be right now. So I think we can look at this fairly positively over this period of time.
All right. What about you, Mr. Huang? Being flexible probably is a very positive word. Others say he is going back to day one of if another president was in power.
Well, good morning, Tianwei.
Good to you.
I believe that, how are you? So in the first 100 days of a president, usually the president is taken by a surprise. For example, with President Clinton, it was Waco, Texas. With President George W. Bush, it was the military striking Iran without his knowing. With President Obama, it was the Somalian pirates. And I think, President Trump, for him, I think the surprise has been North Korea. During his campaign, North Korea wasn't much of an issue. And he was very vague on how he would have responded to North Korea. And now it's quickly becoming a signature issue for him. And I think that has shaped a large part of his engagement with China, and I think that's probably the most exciting part.
Exactly, it is. Some say he has already turned from quote-unquote enemy to friends, from foe to friends. Is that really true, gentlemen? For example, his relations with China.
Well, in my opinion, usually when a president makes a foreign policy shift, there needs to be a base of support. Sorry, go ahead.
Mr. Huang, go ahead, very briefly.
Sure. Well, in my experience, usually when a president makes a foreign policy shift, there needs to be a base of support domestically. And with the rising importance of North Korea, there is now a base of support for engagement. And also, President Trump is a business person. So for him, he needs to have a partner he can do business with. And I think he's found a partner in President Xi based on their mutual chemistry and interaction.
Ambassador Volker, first of all, it was the Taiwan issue. China protested against it about his campaign rhetorics. Then later, currency manipulator or not. And then, of course, about the DPRK issue. Now, President Trump said President Xi is a good friend. He has a lot of respect for President Xi. So, 100 days, wow, what a change.
Yeah. I don't see it as black and white. I don't see it as running hot and cold on China. Instead, I see this as fairly consistent. He's communicating through some of these actions, such as you mentioned about Taiwan or talking about currency, a willingness to stand up for U.S. interests and to be tough and to communicate that to China. And then he's also recognizing we have a lot of common interests and we want to work together with China and to try to develop that kind of relationship with President Xi that Mr. Huang just talked about. So I think he's trying to do both at the same time, and I think that's fairly deliberate to have a mature relationship among grown-ups with some converging and some diverging interests.
And earlier we just heard from the Chinese Foreign Minister Wang Yi talking about the solutions, as he sees it, to the Korean Peninsula nuclear issue. Ambassador Volker, will that be also a thought the Trump administration could be played with and also work toward, as the Chinese suggested, toward one another, not necessarily on all very different directions? Ambassador Volker.
Well, this is a great example of having some converging interests. It is both a Chinese and an American interest for there to be a Korean peninsula without nuclear weapons. And we want to have a more predictable regime in North Korea than the way Kim Jong-un has behaved thus far. So that's a common interest. The U.S. is going to react to this and is doing so, putting some more armaments in, putting missile defense in, because we are prepared to take those actions. China, of course, doesn't like that. We just heard from the foreign minister at the UN objecting to that. But we're going to do it anyway, and we hope that we actually achieve our common goal of seeing a denuclearized Korean Peninsula, then this issue of U.S. military buildup will go away.
Well, we only have 20 seconds for you, Mr. Huang, but you have to come in and comment about that. That right now there seems to be some cooperation, but will that be sustainable? Will that also sustain a very comprehensive U.S.-China relations? Briefly.
Well, I think there's a possibility for a strategic framework, not only on North Korea, but the confidence building that may happen because of North Korea could actually carry on to other agendas. For example, the $1 trillion of domestic investment in infrastructure, that could be another opportunity for collaboration.